1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I've been rolling in since the clock in Monday morning. From the end of the week, I'm bound to blow. Breeze walking through the honky tonk like a pack of wolves now.
Well, here it is, the infamous pigsty FJ55 that just keeps on showing up on the project list and sitting in the same location and actually not doing anything with the list. It's because it has a bad fuel pump. I was actually driving this truck around quite a bit and then the fuel pump went out and I just wasn't gonna fix it. So I'm gonna do the right thing and pull the 1F motor out of this truck and put a 3FE FJ62 motor in that actually came from the go-kart FJ62. If you haven't seen that video, the link will be right here. We just gotta get this thing to move again. I'm tired of you wasting my time. Well, this is the look of, I can't believe I had to do 10/50 more steps to get this motor out, including the transmission that's still attached. This is actually the first time I've ever pulled a motor and transmission together. Not really what I wanted to do with this truck, but it gives me an opportunity to think about if I want to go with the non-synchronized 3-speed. So we're going to be putting this 3FE motor into that old 1970s FJ55 that hasn't been on the channel since I probably started the dang thing. The first thing we're going to do is Craigslist rebuild this thing, as the kids are calling it these days. You know, a little bit of a primer, black spray paint, and then we're going to just into the truck. Easy enough, right? Nope, probably not. The motor's all rebuilt after a couple stops to the dollar store to pick up some black paint and some oven clean to get this thing all degreased and painted up and primed and ready to go in the FJ55. There's just a little bit of a problem. This is the setup from the FJ62 automatic transmission. So we got to get the flex plate off and all the bracketry ready to have the 1F bell housing, flywheel, and clutch go in. We're going to be using the 3-speed transmission. I've been told to go 4-speed. Fortunately, I just don't have a 4-speed transmission to bolt up to that truck at the moment. So we're going to go ahead and use what we have. All jokes aside, this motor actually ran really great. Didn't need a rebuild. As you saw in the adult go-kart video, truck went down the road perfectly fine. It was just really loud, so we're gonna have to figure out an exhaust setup because the 3FE does have 3-to-3 exhaust manifolds that come off of it. Get all that stuff bolted up and drop it in the FJ55. After that, we're gonna do a little bit of a tune-up to the engine once it's in the truck and running. That's oil, spark plug wires, anything that we may need to prolong this motor inside of the 55. Well, as you can see, I've been a little busy playing matchmaker, getting these two ready for their first date. You know, this 3FE FJ62 motor that came out of the go-kart and this non-synchronized 3-speed bell housing, transmission case, flywheel, and clutch assembly that came out of this FJ55. Yes, the legend is true. You can bolt all this stuff up together because they are both Toyota items. So there's the idea. We got to slap this whole thing back in there, which if you remember, it was kind of a little bit of a tough task to get it out. So I'm sure we'll just go silky smooth back in. I do want to note one thing before we slap this motor in the truck, and that is that the 3FE came out of an automatic transmissioned truck. With that said, you need to order a pilot bearing. Here's the part number that I ordered for 1985 to 1987 FJ60. That was the only part that we needed to bolt these things up to the bell housing, that's so the input shaft can be seated to the back of the 3FE. So you go ahead and tap that bearing in, and it will all bolt up together and be ready to go in the truck.
This is a great example of why it is a lot easier to put a motor in without a transmission attached. I'm having trouble mating up the actual motor mounts to the motor and the transmission, as the early Landcruisers had transmission mounts on the ears of the bell housing, as well as obviously the front motor. So we're trying to line up 4 actual mounting points instead of just 2. But as you saw earlier in the video, we had to pull the motor, the 1F motor originally, with the transmission because I couldn't get the bell housing to detach. So, on with the fight.
Well, if you were wondering if putting a motor in an old Toyota Landcruiser was a great way to stay in shape, it most certainly is. Also, if you were wondering if a 3FE would mount up to the factory mounting points in an old Iron Pig, that is also very, very true. If you're also wondering if skipping lunch was a good idea because it's a great way to stay in shape, I would say that's also true because you're putting in an old Toyota Landcruiser motor. And if you're wondering if wiring this thing and getting it to go down the road was going to be a great way to stay in shape, I can most certainly assure you it's going to be. Because I am sweating my tail end off and I have so much dust on me from this dang barn. Oh, motor's in.
It's a quick process, both painful and untreatable, and it's a great way to stay in shape.
Yep, it's true. A 3FE does bolt into an old piggy. Now the big part of the project begins, and what I mean by that, getting this thing wired. So a couple options we're gonna be looking at. One, we're gonna be putting a complete 62 harness in here, or adapting the 55 harness to the 62 harness, so having a hybrid harness, or going with a complete standalone harness and leaving the 55 harness alone. We got a couple things to think about why we are going to be tackling this mess of an engine bay. We also have to start thinking about wiring up the igniter, where the computer's gonna go, where all the airbox things gonna be, getting all the vacuum lines to get back to where they need to be, as well as a fuel pump, an electric fuel pump, because that's gonna be the main course of action to get this thing running. As you saw, we did have some trouble with that in the old go-kart video. Might have to put a return in and this, that, and the other. So tons of stuff to think about. So buckle up, we got a ton of work to do. There's the lifeblood of an FJ55, the veins of the old girl, the wiring harness. So what I'm gonna maybe try to do is just hook this up to the 3FE, see if I can get it running on this chunk of wiring harness, and then work backwards and start cutting away at things that I don't necessarily need. We're gonna be looking at the FJ55 service manual, which I have a book for, as well as an FJ62, to kind of get the map of both harnesses, and then we're gonna kind of bring them together. I think that's the best option that we're gonna be going down. That plan could change as the project moves forward, but that's the best thing I can move forward with now. Here's the rear part of the harness that would run the tail lights and the tag lights and all that jazz in the back of the 62. That's already a big chunk of the harness that we just don't need. But we're gonna keep it just in case we decide this plan backfires and we need to put an entire harness into the 55. That's a lot of stuff we don't need. Well, this is what I call a little bit of a roadkill moment. That's because of the wiring harness, you know, it's there, it's hooked up, you know, the ECU sitting on front of the motor. And we have the ignition switch right here. How convenient is that for trying to turn one of these things over? So she is hooked up to the main things that I want to have it hooked up to right now. And we're gonna see if we can turn it over on a key. I mean, this lovely, super cool screwdriver. Well, despite the battery being dead, she does in fact turn over on the 62 harness. There is something that is very critical about getting to turn over on a harness without an automatic transmission, and I'm going to take you through that right now. I do want to take a closer look here at the wiring that runs down to the starter. We have a starter wire that is pretty normal for these trucks, as well as this other clump of items. This stuff would have gone to the automatic transmission inside the FJ62. One of these things, this connector here, would have been for the neutral safety switch. So we wanted to go ahead and loop that with this wire. This is not the final edition of what this is going to look like, but we do want to just see if we're getting some signs of life. So we want to loop the white and black wire here and the red and black wire, which once you do that, will give the ability to turn the key and get it to turn over. If the word ghetto rig had a picture in the dictionary, this would be it. We have a gas tank here, not strapped down, leading to a used fuel filter to a fuel pump, with the MAV sensor hanging right over the battery with a little bit of a post that is my ratchet. We have the return line all capped off, the ECU just sitting right on top of the motor there. No cooling system, the wiring harness is just out in the abyss, and our key ignition switch right here. We're gonna go ahead and see if we can turn this over on gasoline and see if she'll run for a few seconds, because that would just really get me excited to move along with this project. Do you guys wanna see that? Me too. Nope, not happening right now. I'm literally running out of patience and gas here. Let's talk about real quick why I couldn't get it to run on gasoline, and that is because of this little fella right here. This is a fuel regulator. They're actually somewhat expensive. Rock Auto still sells them for like $150, $200. Same at AutoZone, I think they had it for $200. I had a used one, we're gonna replace a known good one, and that is right here at the end of the fuel rail. That's responsible for the pressures of the gasoline to put into the actual injectors. It's vacuum operated. I did find one on eBay that's for an old MR2 Corolla or Celica from the late 80s to early 90s. It was $20, so that beats the $200. We haven't gotten that in the mail just yet, so we're gonna slap a known good one on here for the time being and see if we can get it to run on gas. All right, we got her to run, okay? And we might want to get her to move, you know what I mean? We might have missed that little detail when we were installing the motor and going crazy trying to get it to run. But there is some science behind my madness in putting this 3FE into this old truck. And that is that the old FJ55s were actually accelerator cables and not linkage to the carburetor. And like the 3FEs, they are cable as well. So we're gonna go ahead and get this installed onto that pedal and hope that it all kind of bolts up to where the old FJ55 pedal and cable mounted out to. So let's get it in there so we can see if we can get this thing to move. Here's the two cables side by side. This is the FJ55 with the carburetor linkage that would bolt up to it. Here is the pedal side. So as you can see, it's fairly similar to the FJ62, which is this guy here. Obviously a lot longer because the accelerator part on the engine is in a totally different location, but it looks like they should bolt right up, which is pretty cool. If you want to know what a runaway 3FE sounds like, just watch the last clip or the next one, deciding where I'm going to put that in the edit, because I'm an idiot. I had the accelerator pedal too far in the front over there, and it was maxed out to redline. I think I almost blew this thing up. Perfect. Well, let's start it the right way. Do I have any business actually trying to move this 55 right now? Absolutely not. Am I going to? Yeah. I just need a little more work room, you know what I mean?
Well, there you have it. A 55 with a 3FE going down the road. Sorta, kinda, maybe. Just got a ton of work that needs to be done. That wiring harness needs to be broken all back down and made it to the 55-1. The fuel system needs to be going to the actual fuel tank and this, that, the other. The truck needs paint, body work. I'll probably never get to that because I just like it the way it is. This truck has gone through so many different renditions while it's been in my ownership, and I couldn't change a thing. I absolutely love the patina and the craziness of this truck, and I'm so excited to continue working on her because that's what these trucks are all about. Just making it yours, learning something new, and putting them back on the road. If you like this type of stuff, please subscribe to the channel, like and share these videos because we got a ton more work to put into this truck and many other Landcruisers. See you next time. Gosh, I'm gonna take you on a date night. Woo!